Definitely. Just before I move on from last night, I do want to touch on Arsene Makhmudov. Obviously, I was there ringside, and you saw the emotions of the crowd. Probably the best atmosphere I've seen at a live event recently. All for Dave. And to Makhmudov's credit, he did come in and he got the job done. Like I say, he's talking about an AJ agreement apparently now. Do you not want to see that fight with Anthony Joshua?
Personally, no, I don't. I think Joshua's better than that. A lot
Mhm.
better than that. I'd like to think AJ should be moving on comfortably and have his eyes firmly fixed on, what Uzyk's going to do with the belts. If one of those belts become vacant, then Anthony Joshua could easily walk into a vacant world title fight and fight another in a world championship fight. That could happen. I mean, there's all sorts of possibilities. Um, but again, everything is dependent on what the great Alexander Usyk is going to do, his next move.
I was wondering, I was speaking to someone in the crowd yesterday. In Britain, we've got quite a few big ticket sales. Also, we've got the AJs, Katie Taylors, Tyson Fury. Dave did really well to sell them tickets. And do you think he is, where do you think he stacks as a ticket seller in Britain right now?
Oh, listen, take out all your champions, and he's right there, isn't he? Who else is gonna back out
That's what I
a,
was thinking.
a 10,000 seater? And there's no title on there's no title on the line. Do you know what I mean? It's not like he's a household box office name. He's not. This is Dave Allen we're talking about. No disrespect, but he's not. He's not an A-lister, is he? So he's a promoter's dream, and that's one of the reasons why I think they'll keep him going because it doesn't matter when he fights, who he fights, he's going to sell the place out. Good luck to the guy. He looked shell shocked on the ring walk, by the way, when he was going to the ring last night. So you knew the fight was pretty much lost from there. Well, I did anyway because I've kind of been in that position. So, like I say, I feel a little bit sorry for him, the fact that he lost, but pleased for him because people love him. And boxers need to be loved. It's a fact. That's what we thrive on. You want to hear the crowd cheering your name. You want to hear the crowd screaming and going bonkers in your favour. It's not so good when they're not. But Madamov, he seemed to block all that out. But he travels. He's been abroad before and won, so he knows what that's like. But he didn't know what was going to happen once he got to Sheffield, and I'm sure he hasn't boxed in a hostile place like that before. So you know, you got to tick box that boy because, like I say, he improved from his last fight, McMadamov. I watched his last fight, and he weren't great, but he's improved since his last fight, and he'll probably improve again from this fight because boxing's all about confidence. If you've got ability, it's all about having confidence to execute that ability. And like I say, he looked half decent last night, didn't he? But again, it's all about what he had in front of him.
Yeah, and speaking about name and love from the crowd, and also like that kind of A-star quality, a man that certainly Eddie Hearn thinks is going to be the one is Ben Whittaker. I wanted to ask, how big of a superstar for British boxing do you think Ben could be? Obviously, we hear about the amateurs and going and picking up a medal in the Olympics. What do you make of that signing?
Well, with Ben, boxing's about confidence, and right now his confidence is sky high because when you see all these promotional videos that they're doing now to promote this boy, he's like the second coming. I've never seen Eddie Hearn act the fool before, but he's even got Eddie Hearn on the string, jumping up and down. I'm sure you've seen the Jerry Maguire type sort of advert they've done. I was on the floor when I saw that. I mean, I couldn't imagine Mickey Duff ever acting like that, or any other promoter acting like that. But you got to move with the times, and Eddie's obviously moving with the times. He has a brand there in Whittaker, and he's half decent. Whittaker, nobody knows how good he is because he hasn't had a test yet, and he doesn't need a test right now. What they have to do is build his stock and get him the right kind of fights. Stop talking about world titles and all that rubbish. He's got to be realistic. Get hold of the domestic title, the British title, which actually means something to all fighters. It means something. The level of opposition might not be that great, but when you're British champion, you can hold your head high knowing you've conquered your backyard. You've cleaned up your backyard. Then you move on from there. I mean, all right, there's four major governing bodies. And right now, I wouldn't put Benny Whitaker near any of the champions. You couldn't. Unless you want to get that brand destroyed and he'd never probably fight again. So, you got to get them the right. They know what they're doing. right? They're going to get in the right fights. They're going to hold him back. And, 6 fights from now, you might be looking at a different fighter, completely different fighter, who's got the backup, in terms of power, who's got the experience in terms of going maybe 10 rounds, who's got the ring sort of savvy in knowing he might get cut and then know how to fiddle and get around the ring and still win a points decision. None of these questions have been answered. We haven't seen Ben Whittaker on the deck yet, or wobbled or hurt. We don't know how he's going to respond. But I might add that I think he's quite a precocious talent, and he's obviously got something, and he could go a long, long way in this division.
I think you've touched on that perfectly. I wanted to say, I'm sure you've seen Frank Smith say that boxing maybe didn't manage him the best in terms of the matches he had so far. And then I saw Simon Jordan say that was a classless comment. Just what do you make of Ben Whitaker's professional career so far, how he's been matched, and also how do you match him right? Would you suggest going that domestic route, pick up the British title, then go towards European, etc.?
Well, I just want to touch on what you just said there about that being a classless comment. That's classless because, for me, Ben Shalom, Whittaker's in the right place at the right time, and he signed with Ben Shalom in good faith. Ben Shalom's done an amazing job with him. The guy's still unbeaten, right? Still on top of his game in that respect. So it's got nothing to do with being matched wrong or right. He's been matched the right way for him thus far. The fact that he's jumped ship now and he's gone to, the other side, as it were, Eddie Hearn, then I'm sure they're going to match him right. So, the jury's going to be out. Of course it is. Every time he steps into that ring, the jury's going to be out. But if it was me, on a personal level, I'd go British title route. I really would, because that will do no end. That will do his confidence no end of good. That would really boost his confidence. Not that he lacks confidence, but you want to be able to put all the pieces to the jigsaw. So when you step up in class, because he will, it goes from there.
Yeah, and before I let you go, I do want to touch. I think I saw you posted it on your Instagram. We're about to get boxing back on British television, free to air, BBC. Are you excited for the Boxer debut? And how good is this? Again, like we say about getting youth into the sport, having it on that free to air terrestrial TV.
Well, isn't it? It's got to be the best thing since sliced bread. If they can, which is what they're going to do, right? So Ben signed this deal. Ben Shalom signed this deal with the BBC. Whether he's got 1 show, 4 shows, or 6 shows makes no difference to me personally. All I want to see is free to air boxing back on terrestrial television. Of course, people pay a license fee, but it ain't no fortune. It's not like paying. It's not like paying for a pay-per-view, which might cost you 30 quid for 1 show. It might cost you 40 quid. I'm not sure. Couldn't tell last time I've done a pay-per-view. But the point I'm making is people pay their licensing fee. It's a one-off payment for the year. All right, what's it, 120 quid? Something like that? I don't even know. I don't pay it. My wife pays it. So that's another story. But anyway, whatever it is, if it's 120 quid, it's worth it. Because now then you might get half a dozen fights this year, all free to air, all on BBC. Coincidentally, that's where I won my first world title on BBC. Yeah, it was Sports Night, I think it was. Wednesday, they showed it on a Wednesday night. Yeah, Wednesday night, I think it was Sports Night with Harry Carpenter, and where I won the IBF flyweight world title. Yeah, that was great times. I used to work at BBC as well. I used to work for them, and both on TV and on radio. So I've had some amazing times with BBC. I've got nothing but praise for them.
Yeah, and I just want to finish off. I spoke to Adam Smith yesterday. I'm sure you saw his brilliant eulogy last night for a fighter, a family man, and a friend to many, Ricky Hatton. Can you just touch on his life and how great a man he really was?
Well, listen, Ricky Hatton was a boxing icon.
Mm.
Ricky Hatton he's right up there with the likes of, in terms of love and respect, and as a fighter, he's right up there with like the Brunos of the world. Everybody loved Ricky Hatton. Sadly, whatever's happened to Ricky Hatton, he's no longer with us. So, may God rest his soul. But he shouldn't be forgotten ever. Not in my views, because he brought a lot of eyes to the prize. And I was in Manchester the night he beat Kostya. Again, I was working for BBC Radio 5 Live. I couldn't even hear myself speak. And I was with John Rawlin, I think it was, and doing that fight. And I couldn't even hear myself speak. The noise the crescendo was incredible. I mean, Hatton was a good fighter. There's no doubt about it. You don't become a world champion by not being good. Ricky Hatton was a good fighter, and he was known for his body punching. He was known, but I don't. Yeah, boy, it's a tragedy. What's happened to him is a tragedy. But the thing is that boxing, martial arts sports, all martial arts sports, or everybody that does a martial arts sports, whether it's amateur or professional, we're wired differently. Emotionally, I'm talking about. We're wired differently. I'm not talking about our skills as fighters or competitors. Just talking about how we're wired in our emotional state of mind. And I believe that when you have to make weight, when you have to go to bed early, when you have to make all the sacrifices that your normal everyday guy doesn't have to make, week in, week out, month in, month out, it does something to you. It's something you can only experience, not really explain that well. So I apologize if I'm not explaining it that well. But what I'm saying is, Ricky Hatton had the highest of highs, but obviously the lowest of the lows. He's not the only one that's lost a brother through suicide. I've lost a brother through the exact same thing. I know Brad McGuigan has lost a brother through the same thing. Glenn McCory through the same thing. The list is endless. There's so many people I know who are in the boxing fraternity. If it hasn't touched them direct, it's attached to it's touched one of their family members. I'm not saying boxing is the root cause of these people checking out, but what I'm saying is, when a fighter does it, it becomes even more sort of poignant and more sort of it hurts. And my brother died in 1995, or my brother took his life in 1995. We're in 2025 now, and there's not a day or an hour or a minute of my life where I don't think about that. But when I hear now of other boxers doing the same thing, it cripples me. It does. It's a horrible emotion. It's something you can't explain. It's only something you can experience, and it's the worst thing. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. I really wouldn't. So my heart goes out to Ricky Hatton, wherever he may be, God rest his soul. But moreover, to his son and his daughter that he left behind, the whole of the Hatton family, those two in particular, because he scarred their lives forever. They're never going to be the same. So I sincerely hope that organisations like the Ringside Charitable Trust, who do amazing work for retired boxers in terms of trying to help the ones that are in need, that need, medical assistance, that need counselling, that need to have scans on their brains, and boxers. A lot of boxers need a lot of help, because we have led a very Spartan life, and nothing can really teach you how to deal with life before, during, or after your career. And I know other people have difficult lives also. Maybe everybody needs a little bit of counselling. People, we live in quite a fragile state, I believe. This whole world that we live in, people are very, very, can get unhinged quite easily. And but sadly, it would appear there seems to be a crisis in boxing right now where boxers need help. So I'm hoping this might be the catalyst where the boxing family, if you will, come together and work as one for the good and the well-being, not of the promoters, but of the fighters, the ones that actually get in there and do the dirty work.
Definitely, Duke. I 100% agree, and I really appreciate your time and obviously the honest words tonight. Thank you very much.